In this video, we want to state the period and the amplitude for each of the following, and they're all cosine graphs. So you may have seen a previous video where we looked at the period and the amplitude for sine graphs, and we're just going to do exactly the same thing now for a cosine graph. So the first thing we need to remember is that if we want the amplitude, we're simply looking for the number that's multiplying the cosine function and that we ignore it when it's negative. So for this example, for part A, we have 2 cos of 4x. So the 2 here is going to be the amplitude. So we can write that out now. Now when we get to calculating the period, we actually know that the period is 360 divided by n. So the period, and the n value is the number multiplying x. So in this case, we get n is equal to 4. So for this, we're going to have 360 divided by n, which is 4. And when we do 360 divided by 4, we find that that is simply equal to 90. So our first one has an amplitude of 2 and a period of 90. For the second graph, y equals negative 3 cos of 2x, the amplitude, we still look at this number that's multiplying cos, but we ignore the negative. So the amplitude's simply going to be 3. Now the period, we're going to do exactly the same thing, and we're going to have 360 divided by n, and in this case, the number, or the value multiplying x, or the coefficient of x, the n value is 2. So we're going to have 360 divided by 2, which gives a period of 180. So our amplitude is 3, and our period is 180. For part C, we're going to do exactly the same thing again. So for our amplitude, we're interested in looking at the number that's multiplying cosine, which is negative 2 on 3. So the amplitude ignores the negative nature of that and just quotes it as a positive value. So the amplitude is going to equal positive 2 over 3. Now the period, we look at the number that is multiplying x. So we have x divided by 4 there, which means the n value is 1 over 4. So when we calculate the period, we're going to have 360 divided by a quarter. And now that's the same as 360 multiplied by the reciprocal, 4 over 1. And 360 times 4 is simply 1,440. So that is going to be the period for part C, and our amplitude is 2 over 3. For part D, we have our amplitude is related to this negative 10 that's multiplying the cosine function. So the amplitude is going to equal positive 10, because we ignore the negative on that value when we're quoting the amplitude. Our amplitude is always a positive value. Next up, we look at the coefficient of x, and in this case, the coefficient of x is going to be n equals 5 divided by 6. So it's not just the 5 or the 6, it's the fraction 5 over 6, which is multiplying the x. So to calculate the period, we have 360 divided by 5 over 6. And now to evaluate that, we're going to know that that's 360 multiplied by the reciprocal, which is 6 over 5. And now to help answer this, I'm going to do 360 and divide it by 5 first, which will give 72. And then we're going to multiply that by 6. So our answer is going to be 432. So that's the period, and this is the amplitude for part D. So once again, I hope these videos are helping, and good luck for any problems that you are doing that relate to the period and amplitude for sine or cosine.